Thank you, Chief Simmers. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage my colleague from MarkWest Energy Partners, Jeremy Smith, to share his presentation of production to product. Jeremy is currently Director of Business Development for the Northeast region, with responsibility for all commercial activities involving MarkWest midstream assets in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Michigan. Jeremy?
Thanks, Dave. Feedback. All right, let me see. We got. Okay, thanks, Dave, again. When I grow up, I want to be more like Dave Callahan. As he mentioned, I'm Director of Business Development. The true story is I've only done that for about the last 6 months, which I caught on real quick to the dinners and drinking and people not being able to find me and not returning calls. I'm still working on the commercial side to actually sign up some deals, but in my prior life, I've been with MarkWest 5 years. I was a general manager for West Virginia these past 5 years, and prior to that worked 12 years with Dominion Transmission. So, all right, let me figure out which button switch. So my presentation's in 3 portions. First, it's a little soapbox. MarkWest talks about our company and what we've done with a lot of the producer customers and other midstreams and transmission companies in the tri-state area. The second part, I spend a little bit of time from a high level going through what happens from the well, the gathering, the processing, fractionation. I know a lot of times we're speaking to people who, like high school students and such, that don't have that background, so obviously a lot of you are going to know and look at me and say, well, I already know that, but just deal with me. The third portion is something that, full disclosure, I'm a fill-in here today, okay? So Tracy McCall from MPC, our parent company, who's excellent at talking about the product side of what's made out of all the shale resources we have, was unable to make it. So it's probably, and she's really good, so I'll have to get through that portion. It's similar if you're in a town with a bad NBA team and you buy 1 ticket a year for when LeBron shows up and you get your popcorn, you're looking down on the court, and that's the night, oh, we're going to arrest him, so you're stuck with me filling in for that. But on this slide here are the customers we deal with, and I'm sure a lot of the other companies in the room, so it just gives you an idea of what we have. So gathering and processing, so MarkWest right now, and you can see we do 5.4 billion a day in gathering, processing almost up to 8 BCF, fractionation 550 million barrel per day. And when I first started 4 years ago, if you look at the slide on what percentage is in the Marcellus and Utica for our company, it was under 20%, under 25%, and in just that short period of time, we've jumped up to this amount. So a quick overview of our company. The Northeast region, which is up here, and shows there, we have a Southwest region in Texas and Oklahoma, and we also operate some crude oil assets in Michigan, but the bulk of our growth has really been in the Northeast and somewhat in the Southwest. And so again, going through specific to MarkWest, and this is Marcellus and Utica, so this is the Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia region. 3 BCF of gathering, 5.5 processing, almost 500 million barrels a day of fractionation. So you can see that's a lot, especially when most of that wasn't there 10 years ago, right? So this graph just gives you an idea of my point that I just said on how much production has increased and grew. And I started with MarkWest in that 2012 time frame, and I like to say that's when things really started picking up because I got over here, but the truth is it was already in the makings, right? So you can see from the graph on how much growth there has been in just the last 4 years alone, right? So I like this slide as leading into the next slide because, again, when I started in 2012, and if you go to Mobley and Sherwood on the south of West Virginia, those sites were just being built. They weren't in service. And David Donnie will tell us Caddis was being built also. It wasn't in service. And if you blink and you go from the 10 plants and the 3 fracs, and then 4 years later, we built that many processing trains. So 32 plants in total, 14 facilities, compressor stations, pipeline. It was crazy, and I know many of you were part of that, the growth, the boom, the production, the midstream, and the support. So that just gives you an idea on how fast and quickly this stuff goes. So this just shows some more MarkWest assets and just our mostly liquids and how we're tied together in our network in the tri-state area. But, okay. All right, now I'm like a father, boring you with pictures, but we really like to show off our facilities, especially the two down here. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. At the bottom, where Sherwood and Mobley, when I started, weren't there. They were earthwork, and I'm really proud that we built that. Sherwood is starting up its 7th processing train this week, so it is now capable of 1.4 billion a day in inlet capacity and processing with a 40,000 barrel a day de-ethanizer. So a lot of stuff's happened with us. So now I'm going to go more into the portion, the section that, some of you are going to say, I know, we know how it works. Well, just bear with me. Tim Biddle doesn't know this stuff. He doesn't know the difference between a demethanizer and an 85 Ford Escort, so I might as well explain it to him so he can do the tour next time at Sherwood. So basically, the production company finds its wells to get out. They sign their leases. They come up with a drilling plan, and they're ready to drill. They're ready to go and find the gas. With these wells, they're set up to remove water and contaminants and filtration because that stuff can't come to the pipeline, come to the midstream companies. So you'll hear terms like IP, initial production, and estimated unit recoveries. That kind of gives you more of a scale on how well the well performs and for the lifetime of the well. So you'll hear that talk a lot with production companies. So gathering and compression. We don't, as MarkWest, get into the production side. That's more the producer. But this part of this industry can be, we get involved in it. Other companies like Crestwood, Summit, many companies offer these services. Plus, a lot of times the producers have their own midstreams or their own services. So where basically now you have the well, it's ready to produce, it's ready to flow. Well, you have to have a way to get that to the processing plant. So you're going to have pipelines laid and usually compressor stations, and you're going to bring this raw, rich gas to either a processing facility or direct to market. So the difference there, if it's really dry, lean gas that meets a good BTU spec, a lot of times that won't be processed because there's not a lot of liquids. There's not a lot of uplift in the product, so it'll go straight to the transmission line, something like Dominion or TECO or one of those companies. So then after that, you've done the well, you're now went through the gathering, now you've got to do something. If it is rich gas, it's high BTU, several things. It can't be delivered into the pipeline at that high of a BTU. Plus, there's liquids in it, right, that are worth value, and the producer customer wants, hey, we want to get the liquids out of it. So this is more of what MarkWest, MPLX, bread and butter, and other companies, this is really similar, right? So it's a processing plant. So you send this gas, the rich gas, to what you'll hear a cryo or a knockout plant, and it basically, based on properties and cryogenics, you got high pressure coming in through pressure cuts and refrigeration and the way that, just the nature of the gas, when you cut that, the temperature drops and liquids fall out. So now we're beginning the process of separating the heavy liquids, the NGLs, from methane and or ethane. And so you can see some of the temperatures on here, and there's basically about 2 modes that these plants operate in when they're on the knockout phase. There's either ethane recovery, ethane rejection, and a couple things drive that. One is the BTU spec, and a lot of times you have to get some of the ethane out just so you can deliver the dry gas to market. 2 is market, if people want the ethane and have a good market to sell it. So you'll hear in the industry, we'll say, are we in rejection or recovery? If we're in recovery, we're also knocking the ethane out with the rest of the liquids, and then we're going to fractionate it. Or if it's in rejection, we're putting it back into the line with like the transmission gas and goes on to market. So this is the part, if there's process engineers in here, they always get mad at me because I'm a layman's term type of guy, and I like to explain this, especially when just the people outside the industry. But after it's going through the processing plant, and we've now dropped out a whole gamut of liquid, which is propane and your butanes and your natural gasolines. The simplicity of how it's separated is it's really boiling points. I know like the process engineers will fight me and go, well, you get enthalpy and constant pressure and that stuff, but the simpleness of it is basically you heat it, the one that boils first comes off, you recondense it, now you have that all by itself. Then you go to the next step and you do it again, and you do it again until you're back to like your natural gasolines and you've boiled off everything in stages. So that's kind of, if you want to look at it on simple terms, how it works. And this graph kind of shows that a little bit. You can see, so you'll hear three terms. You'll hear Y grade, C3+, C2+, it depends on how it's mixed. But after the liquids are now gathered and we put it in a pipeline and send them to one of our fractionators, it comes in and the first thing it'll go to is a depropanizer because it's the next lightest material that'll boil first. You boil that off, you can see along the bottom that now you have liquids that still have butanes and natural gasoline. Well, now you boil off the butane, the natural gasoline comes off the bottom. Now it's ready. It's going to go to a sphere, to a pipe. Now you can put it into a pipeline. You could put it into rail cars, barge, depends on your facilities. Butanes come off the top. We do the same thing to a butane splitter, split it, same thing. So this stuff can be sent by rail, by truck, in multiple ways to market. So now you've got to this point. You've got the gas, you've gathered it, you've processed it, you've knocked it out, you have these individual products, and now you can market it. So through marketing, and that's one of the services we provide, and a lot of other streams, midstreams do too, that's sold a gamut of ways. Like I said, it'll be trailed or railed, trucked, on pipeline, and gets to market, and that's how it gets sold. So that's kind of how we go from the wellhead and through the processing part. I know I talk fast, but that's just my nature. All right, now we're to the portion that you've got your hot dog and your beer, and you look down, and if some guy from West Virginia, he could skin a buck or run a trout line, but he can't play basketball, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the products. This isn't my expertise or background, but to be honest, this presentation, if you get anything, this is the part we can go home and talk to people and your children and family and anti-fossil fuel folks and say, do you realize how many things come from crude oil and natural gasoline? So one of the first ones is ethane, the off gas. So the petrochemical industry, crackers, I mean, almost everybody in the room has probably heard about that. That's been the talk for years. When we're going to get a cracker, we need industry. We have ethane, we have gas in the area. So with ethane, there's a lot of uses for it. And the crackers, PVC, plastics, adhesives. My favorite's the solar panels, right? We want all this energy, and oil and gas is terrible. It's a horrible thing. We need to get rid of it all. And the people that make solar panels, a large portion of that product is from ethane going through ethylene, right? Propane. Okay, this is the easy one, right? I really didn't have to look at Wikipedia for this one, really. I think most people in the room, but the majority of the use is not heating and crop drying. That's about a third. It's actually about 50% of it's through the petrochemical industry for feedstock. And you can see how it's transported. But that's the obvious one. Everyone knows natural gas and industrial uses for it, and gas grills and propane. So propylene. So this is some more interesting stuff. Plastics. So all these plastics, toys, your carpet, medical equipment, gasoline, windmills. Have you seen a pattern here? Quick story to prove that I was a failure as a father. My son comes home during the election and says, hey, Dad, if I could vote, I'd vote for Bernie Sanders. So after much crying and a couple fights in the house and me holding him down and choking him a little bit, my wife's like, you know what, you don't do a very good job educating him, obviously, because I've been in oil and gas 17 years, and he doesn't understand that. No, we need wind energy. So knowing that I think it's 42% of the blades are made out of propylene, which is from a fossil fuel, right? So that's good stuff if you've got kids or children or the general people. I'll bring it up. Benzene. So benzene's taken out of these products, and it's used to make styrofoam, nylon, rubber, fiberglass. And, you know, the thing about benzene being in the gas industry, you hear people that, yeah, it causes cancer and there's risks. Well, it's like a lot of chemicals. If it's not used properly, it is an issue. But the government mandates us on removing that anyhow from gasolines and crude oil. So through engineering and chemical engineers, they found uses to make this useful. So if you're out on your boat and used to doing things like that, or drinking your hot coffee and keeping it hot, you can thank natural gas industry. Consumable items. So how many of you have ever went back in the day when I had not as much money, and I'm probably getting ready to do this again with a daughter starting college, hey, you need a bookshelf or something. I'm not going to a nice furniture store for her because I know what we did in college. So I'm going to go to Walmart and go and buy one of these shelves that looks nice standing up, and then I realize it's in a box with 8,000 pizzas and instructions I don't understand. And it's made out of cumene. Now, and it'll last a long time. So that sawdust-looking backboard, that's from a natural gas refined oil product. Appliances, big market now. I mean, everybody in the United States has refrigerators, but a lot of the other countries that are getting industrialized are now starting to be in homes. They didn't always have them. Huge sales with refrigeration, plastic in the refrigerators. CDs, which used to be a huge use of that, right? You know, I'm getting to the age where I remember the Walkman, and I had the cassette tapes, and it moved into CDs, and DVDs were cool. I'm sure Callahan goes back to at least records. I know 8-tracks, but for sure records, right? So that was something, a huge use for it, though. Now the market's kind of died off because everybody downloads everything. Everything's digital now. Okay? Toluene. This is one of my favorites because I'm a little bit of a motorhead and had background in that. It's racing fuel. So in the 80s, it's like a 109 octane. It'll boost the fuel. And in the 80s, Honda was one of the first to use it in their Indy cars and was able to get an advantage based on race fuel. And obviously adhesives and other things. And I always remember the black tape brings me back. I don't know if anybody has any coal miners in their family, and I'm from a coal miner family and West Virginia, so I got a lot of jokes against me. But, you know, the duct tape, we fix everything with duct tape. Well, I'll argue different. If your pappy was a coal miner in West Virginia, anybody remember the black tape that had numbers on it? So in the mines, they had numbers so they could track it warehousing-wise. And I always thought, man, Papa, we fixed everything with that. Little did I know later, the reason he had it, it was free to him, and he brought him home in his lunchbox every day and just loaded up on it. So you got your tapes, medications. It's used, again, you know, like I said, for blending gasoline. Xylenes, again, plastic bottles, clothing, dyes. The stuff's used in textiles to make clothes. And some of the products used to make all these plastic water bottles, right? Our generation drinks a lot of those, drinks a lot of water. The younger generation, like my daughter, she's against that, the environmentally safe. She likes these bottles, you know, the filler-up ones. So, but that's been a huge industry for those products. So, sulfur. So we extract sulfur, and it's able to be used for fertilizer, detergents, all kinds of other things. Medicines, it's used in medicines. The challenge there, though, there is the issue, right, with H2S, which we deal that with the gas industry. But this is a huge market for sulfur. That's how you keep your lawn nice and green. This slide's kind of busy. It talks about specifics, and I'm not going to spend any time on it. It's useful. But this one, it's kind of close to what I want to wrap up with. It just tells you everything from a really simple view of what's used. And if you look at those websites across the top, that's a site you can go to if you want to take this to other people and say, these are the things that the shell products and the fossil fuels have produced for us, continue to produce for us. If you get one thing out of this presentation is there's tons of uses for the product. I've been in the industry 17 years, and probably I could say, in all honesty, first 16 years, I knew we heated houses and other things, and it went to petrochems until I actually went through some of this training from our own people and saw it. I never knew to go home and set my kids down, or someone said, do you realize this, we make this and this comes from this? So there's some really good information out there. I think it helps us just let people know you can't just do away with all of it. You know, it's all, renewable energy is great, but this ties in with it. Really good looking guy. I know I went through that fast. That's just my nature of talking, but I'll gladly answer questions if they're not hard and they make me look good. Yes? Is it, was that for the gathering capacity? Processing capacity, I'm trying to think offhand, we're probably in the 80%. So Sherwood, for example, it's actually full with 6 plants going to 7, and it's ready. The producer's ready to fill up 7. Offhand, Mobley's 80% full, Majorsville 80s. I don't know in Ohio, Dave. I think you guys are full to the gills at Caddis, 80% at Seneca, Bluestone's 70-some%, Houston's full. So we're at a good spot. We didn't get too far ahead, and to be honest, we hit that just about right. You saw all those plants we were building. It was a time when someone said we need one. We didn't really look as close. And then when we went through the slow times, probably in the last year and a half to 2 years, we've kind of stepped back and said, all right, now we're caught up. Where do we need to be to make sure we got enough capacity for our producer customers? Any more questions? Nothing about plastics I'll have to make up that I don't know the answer to? Did I get us back on time, back on schedule? All right. All right, thanks, everybody.